Hi, I'm Cecilia Kwong, a habitat conservation intern for OC Habitats. This is Stacy Chartier-Grable, the executive director of OC Habitats. Today we have David Flores from Project Grow with us, and we're partners in restoration in Upper Newport Bay. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll learn more about David and his work with Project Grow, as well as his career path. So to start us off, please tell us what your job title is at Project Grow and when did you start with them?
Yeah, so I am the program coordinator for Project Grow, and I started in this position in August of 2023.
Okay, awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started, or kind of just got involved in this field of work?
I originally got my BA in English Literature at UC Davis, but it was near the end of my time there that I was really starting to explore other disciplines, and that began with plants and horticulture and sustainable horticulture specifically. And so that eventually transitioned over into environmental sciences, and I studied environmental sciences and habitat restoration, ecological restoration at Saddleback College, and that kind of got me into the field. So that's the very short version.
Ultimately, what inspired you to join Project Grow specifically?
Yeah, so it was really a combination of things, but really my time with Matt, knowing Matt Yurko, he was my teacher, my advisor, mentor. I really have looked up to Matt, and he's just really been there for me in a lot of ways and helped me really jump into this field. So I had heard about Project Grow originally as an intern for Matt and the ecological restoration program at Saddleback College. And so I served as an intern, and that kind of allowed me to get into the field of environmental studies and sciences. I worked in the private sector for a little while as a restoration technician, and then this job opened up, and it was a great opportunity. I applied for it, and I was very lucky to get it.
I'd love
Yeah.
to chime in on that a little bit,
Mhm.
Cecilia, just because we've been around and been watching. And I know it was hard because Matt was really working kind of solo with some help, and he really needed someone that could fill his shoes. And David, you've done a great job. So I will, or we're
Thank
happy to
you.
work with you. It's been so
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, it
I
has been. Thank you so
agree.
much.
I've also had the pleasure of working with David, and that was awesome. So following up on that, personally, what impact do you hope to have through your work with Project Grow, and what motivates you to like continue in this field of work?
Really, I want to be a resource for our participants, our interns, our students, volunteers too, but really people who are interested in kind of getting more involved in the field, aren't entirely sure where they want to be or know what they want to do. I just want to be a resource for them, and really be able to continue to create a safe environment for learning and really make our program a sense of, build a sense of community there. And I think we've been able to continue to do that as I've come into this role. So really, just whatever I can do to help our interns, our students, our volunteers really make this program their own and also be able to advance in the field.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. What has been the most rewarding part or the most memorable part of your career so far?
Oh man. Really, it has been working with our students and our partners. Really, I mean, this program has already been established for a really long time, and
Mhm.
so it made my job so much easier to just kind of come in and continue what was already been established. It was very easy to continue to work with our partners at California Department of Fish and Wildlife, Newport Bay Conservancy, OC Habitats, and everyone has been so amazing and welcoming, and it just makes my job easy to continue to build on those relationships. And then in terms of our interns and our volunteers, I mean, they're a great group of people. They're very diverse, come from a lot of different backgrounds, and even in terms of just like education and what they are focusing on, there's so much out there. So I've really had the pleasure to get to know them on a more personal level, and kind of learn, who they are as people. And so that has been a huge aspect of my job that I love and that I feel has been really rewarding.
Thank you. And then we've been working with Project Grow for a while. So Stacy, would you like to speak a bit about that?
Oh, just that, I love what your answer was, David, because I know that was education and the connection with, volunteers, interns, and or staff is super important with Project Grow. And Matt has really fostered that. And like I said, he picked the right person because you're continuing that that format and that, you know, and it is important, I think, when we're connecting people to nature and also connecting people to volunteerism, that you're, you know, you're getting to know these people and then they feel connected to you, which you're connecting them to everything else. So I agree with that. And I would say that we're the same at OC Habitats, that part of our biggest is the relationships that we build amongst our volunteers, staff, and interns, and how it makes such a difference in how the organization is run.
Absolutely. Yeah, without them, we wouldn't be here. So
Okay, and then just delving more into Project Grow now as an organization, we've been working with Project Grow for the past 5 years doing mitigation projects around Upper Newport Bay. But before us and before that time, kind of what projects has Project Grow been doing, and if you could speak a little bit about how and why it was founded.
yeah, so the projects before, I don't have a lot of information on, unfortunately, but I can speak more on terms of just like how we were kind of established. So
Mhm.
Project Grow was founded in 2001 by the California Coastal Commission's originally named Community-Based Restoration and Education Program, a mouthful, acronym CBREP. So naturally, you can understand why we probably eventually change it to Project Grow. It kind of rolls off the tongue a little better, easier for people to recognize and
Yeah.
identify with. And it was founded with mitigation funds from the American Trader oil spill that happened in the mid 1990s and off the coast of Huntington Beach. And so the CCC or the California Coastal Commission Public Education Program used the funds to find a suitable site where the program could complement a current program. And so, in the case of Upper Newport Bay, the Newport Bay Naturalists and Friends, now known as Newport Bay Conservancy, had an active restoration volunteer group. And so, our program was able to be placed at Upper Newport Bay to support and grow the volunteer restoration efforts there.
And then, what are some of the key milestones or achievements that Project Grow has accomplished since its inception?
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's several to factor in. I think we can really look at just our numbers based on like our metrics. So over the course of, since about 2005, we've removed 48.5 tons of invasive plants. We've planted over 27,000 native plants throughout our restoration sites. We've recruited over 23,000 volunteers. So those hard numbers are definitely things that we consider and look at in terms of our milestones and our achievements. But I would say another thing is also being able to hire staff. And so we're not a very big operation. It's two of us, but we've had at least one full-time and one part-time staff since 2009. So that was also a game changer for us.
I'd like to add in is, you know, I know that you mentioned how many volunteers, and that's amazing. And of course, you guys have been around for what, 19, 20 years now?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a long time. And I know when we first met Project Grow, they were doing a Wednesday and a Saturday or Sunday program with
Mm-hmm.
volunteers. And I know with the pandemic, that really changed that. Um, but you know, that was a great program. And I think you had one of them was called Roots and the other one, they were called different names on the different days. But you know, that's kind of when we came in, is when the pandemic kind of took over and we were able to come in when no one else could. And I don't think you guys have revisited those working days again, have you, or have you not?
Yeah, so we still do that. Yeah, technically they're still considered routes. So when I came on board, I had to switch the weekday event to Tuesdays instead of Wednesdays. So we still have Tuesday events and we still have Saturday events
Oh,
for
okay,
sure.
that's great. Okay,
And from
awesome.
my understanding, I think they're both still called routes. Although I don't, that might be posted like on our website and stuff, but
I think it may
I,
have been two different names before, but it makes
I'm
more sense
sure.
to
Yeah.
have it be the same name because I
Mhm.
felt like I remember when I was talking to Matt years ago, like, oh, this is the Roots group and this is another group. And that was, I felt like, oh, it would be better if it was just one.
Yeah, I think it was something like partner or stewards. Something with stewards in
Exactly.
it.
I
I
think
think I came across
yeah.
it. Yeah. No, I think we just call it roots now. That makes the most sense to simplify it.
Can you share some of the current projects or initiatives that Project Grow is working on?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So we're kind of at the latter stages of our active projects that we have going on right now. So one is our riparian creation area in the valley at Upper Newport Bay. And so we're currently still working on that. And then our ASL site, our Algerian sea lavender site, which OC Habitats helps us with once a month. and has done for many years now. So those are the two active projects that we have currently going. I can talk a little bit more in depth. So our riparian creation area, basically at this stage, it's just about monitoring and managing. So we've already implemented all of our native plants, created our own seed palette and everything, and we've established all that already. So now it's making sure that the native plants that we planted in there are doing okay, and making note of anything that's struggling, and then documenting any plants from our seed palette that are coming up, and then kind of what areas they're germinating and coming up, growing in, and then invasive plant removal. So that's a big part of what we do too, and especially with the last few seasons, we've had really heavy rain, so everything is just booming. So that's great for our native plants, obviously, but also our invasive. So we're doing a lot of invasive plant removal from that area to make sure that the native plants thrive. But that's kind of the gist of what we're doing for our riparian creation area. And then Algerian sea lavender, that has always been a project that's been more passive restoration. So we haven't, from my knowledge, we haven't done any native planting there. It's always been about invasive plant removal with the target species Algerian sea lavender. And from what it seems like, since I've been there, at least in this position, that those populations have gone down dramatically, and so we've focused on other invasive plants too. So like common sow thistle, yellow sweet clover, rabbit's foot grass, some other ones, but those are the primary ones for sure.
Yeah, we actually were OC Habitats was there on day one with that project, and when we first got there, ASL was literally carpeting all the area. So huge change. But of course, we've also seen, like you said, other invasives that are there. So obviously our focus is ASL, but removing the others is just as important. And we have not planted anything. It was with the intention that the natives would fill in on their own, and they have done that. We've just seen a lot of different the alkali heaths and different heaths out there filling in. Our California sea lavender is really doing great. It was there before, but it's definitely thriving more than it was almost 3.5 years ago now. We also help with the riparian, the initial work. We were planting and doing all that. We haven't done as much with the monitoring, but that was a really fun project as well. Different work altogether, like you said, one is a little bit more passive that we're pulling, but we're not planting. That one was literally, not only pulling, but trimming back and doing all sorts of, things that, were hard work. But people enjoyed it.
I'm so glad that we have organizations like OC Habitats and like Project Grow that do this kind of work. And like, I wish I did this kind of stuff in high school too. Like I have a lot of fun like as a college student doing this kind of work. Moving along, as climate change worsens and like there's always the challenges that come with obtaining funding, like as for nonprofits. And then are there any other challenges the organization has gone through or that you've had to overcome personally? Feel free to answer both or either one of them.
Yeah. Obstacles for me personally, I would say, I don't know if it was necessarily an obstacle, it was just adjustment. So this position was an adjustment to come into. But that's just like any new job that you start. But I felt like because of how familiar I already was with the program, with Matt, and just being passionate about this kind of work, it ended up being pretty smooth overall. But for sure, there was an adjustment period. But in terms of the program itself, I mean, funding is the major factor there. That's always been kind of a challenge. From my understanding, at one point, the program was down to 3 months of funding before additional grants were secured. So it was like really down to the line at one point. I don't think it's been that way for a while now, but I mean, that's always something that you run into, especially as a nonprofit program, that it's just, you just got to find the funding wherever you can. And then additional challenges have been the evolution of the program itself. So the scenario has changed dramatically since the program's inception. So in particular, the Newport Bay Conservancy no longer has a volunteer restoration program. Instead, they have 3 hired full-time professional staff that take on $1 million restoration projects. So they've definitely grown a lot and have changed quite a bit. And so in that sense, Project Grow can decide how to best use our time and resources, which have not grown much. So in terms of staff and funding, so we have a little more flexibility and in terms of how we approach projects and and what we want to do with our day-to-day work. And then part of the evolution of the program also addresses a shift of these resources. So the program made a strategic decision to host college and university interns and make their professional development as environmental leaders, is what we call it, a larger part of our program. And so that's really what we focus on quite a bit now. I mean, we still engage with community members, but it's mostly about our interns and students that come in. I've also made it a point to continue our connection with different clubs at UCI and Saddleback College. So that in conjunction with our interns have really been the core of what our program's been about. So and as our program continues to evolve, the environmental leader program and our internship experience specifically is expected to grow further too. So we'll continue to prioritize that.
It's great. We have some of the same challenges when you were saying the focus used to be more volunteer based and now it's more intern staff based. We found the same thing. We love our volunteers, but we know that their time is limited and sometimes they can't commit to a long-term commitment, right? So when Matt was there more full time, we were trying to help work on that education and trying to create a leadership group, which it sounds like you're still doing. We were just struggling because even though, like I said, we love our volunteers and they were very passionate about it, their availability was very limited. So our group is also focused a little bit more on interns and staff than volunteers as much, as just because it's hard to put a lot of energy into a volunteer and then them not show up. So
Sure.
I get it. But it's working. That's why I like our internship program so well. And I think connecting with community is key. So I think that's amazing. And, OC Habitats is trying to do that as well. But I think, your connection with certain schools, being that Matt has taught at every school in Orange County.
Just about, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he has a lot of those college connections, which is really great. So that's awesome.
And from what
Yeah.
we've experienced, it does seem that, while we are focusing a little more on the internship experience, it does still kind of trickle down to the community as well. It looks a little different, obviously.
Yeah, I think for us too, in that, like I said, we still love our volunteers. But the main training is happening higher up, and then those higher ups are training our volunteers, and without that expectation of, oh, you're going to come every time, right? No,
Yeah,
we
exactly.
now know we're going to teach you what we can teach you today, and hopefully you'll love it enough that you come back. But
Yeah.
we also don't have the expectation, and we're not as disappointed, right? When you have high expectations, there's always disappointed. So we bring our expectations down, and it balances out a little bit. So.
Yeah.
So looking into the future, what are some of the goals and aspirations for Project Grow over the next, maybe 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, we want to continue to grow our program. I mean, again, we've been around for quite some time, but we want to continue our success and can build on that momentum. And so it'll just continue to look different. And that's what we want. We want to continue to be able to assess our program, what we're doing right, and what we need to address and make our program more accessible. And so one of those ways that we do that right now, since I've come on board, is we've been developing our DEI initiative. And so right now we're in the process of forming a committee, which will help us really just better understand how to serve our community and our participants, making our program more diverse and inclusive. So that's one thing that we're kind of looking at, that's building towards our future and also addressing what we're doing now. Another aspect of our program is we're in the process of introducing research opportunities. And this is something that we're really, really excited about as well. It's something that's a little newer to our program. It's not implemented yet, but it's in the process. And that kind of falls in line with our focus for enriching the experience for our interns and students. So specifically for me, I see it as a really great opportunity for our students at community college. I'm a longtime community college student myself, currently still am, in and out. And I know firsthand that being able to have research opportunities at the community college level is pretty hard to come by. And if you are interested in getting in this field or want to transfer, having that kind of experience is really valuable. So I'm really excited about that opportunity. And I mean, it's going to benefit all students and all of our interns, and even our volunteers who are interested in investing in that aspect of our program. So I can't really dive into the details because, again, it's in the very, very early stages, but the opportunities are there. And so we're really excited about that. those are kind of some of the goals that we're looking at in terms of continuing to grow our program and just continue to evolve. And we're also having to kind of negotiate what our program is going to look like in the coming years, because we're kind of nearing the tail end of our time with the Tide Center, which is the apparatus that kind of manages us. So yeah, we need to decide whether or not we want to continue to be a nonprofit, or if we get absorbed from one of the one of our partners. We don't really know. I think the best part about the situation we're in is that we're pretty open to opportunities, and so we really need to just understand and measure like what avenue do we take that will allow us to continue to do the work that we're doing in terms of providing opportunities for interns, volunteers, participants, and also addressing habitat restoration efforts and such. So
Yeah, that's really awesome to hear, especially about the research. Like as a college student myself, like I know college students are really into research, and I know the opportunities are not as available for community college students. So that is definitely a really awesome thing you guys are doing.
yeah,
And I hope OC Habitats gets to grow and evolve alongside Project Grow.
yeah.
So yeah, and like obviously with the climate change worsening and the emerging environmental challenges, how does Project Grow plan to adapt to that, such as like biodiversity loss and just other further climate change related issues?
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to do what we have been doing. It has been addressing that exactly. We are addressing biodiversity loss by the projects that we've been working on, and we're seeing impact. We were seeing what we're doing as being impactful. So, like in our coastal sage scrub areas, we know California gnatcatchers out there. We don't know if they're exactly nesting. We haven't been monitoring that, but we do know they're out there. And our riparian and salt marsh sites, we do see ridgeway rails and Belting savanna sparrows. So those are a kind of proof that the work that we're doing is contributing to creating habitat, which is also creating biodiversity. So it's working what we're doing, and we're going to continue to address that. I'm sure there will be things that we discover along the way as we continue to grow as a program and evolve that we'll want to be a part of. There's some things that I personally am really interested in that I might be able to try to implement as well for our program. So I'm personally excited about the potential to extend our knowledge and projects to urban communities and within and have projects within these communities themselves. And so not just on the habitat scale, but within like creating stepping stone habitats and with a larger goal of supporting and promoting connectivity that starts in these communities that we're working in. So that's something that I was like a personal interest of mine that I feel like we might be able to get involved in a little bit more. But I think that we would be able to really address the community and be a part of the communities by actually working in there and working with them instead of kind of having people come to us. So that's just an idea. It's not something that we have actually in the works at the moment, but it's just something that could be a potential opportunity for us in the future.
And then I know you already touched upon like kind of how Project Grow is making a difference in the environment. In what ways do you feel that Project Grow is making a difference in in the community?
Having our program available and knowing that we are we are a public program. So we are still broadcasting our program. We go to events and talk to people about it. It's usually mostly students. And that's usually how we engage with the communities, through the students. It seems like they engage with us because they are interested in developing their career this way or getting the experience that they want. But I mean, we still have people from the community reach out to us occasionally, and we'll host events, or I'll do private events. I'll have schools come, or classes come from like elementary, well, not elementary, but usually like junior high and high school will come out. And so that's a way that we kind of engage with the community in that way. But just making sure that our program is able to be open in that way, that our program is accessible in so many different ways, I think is important. We'll continue to address that and prioritize that too.
Stacy, if you wanted to like add anything to that.
I think we covered it already about, making a difference in the community is and he talked about getting into the communities where, OC Habitats is also looking at that because even though Orange County is fairly small and in respect to California, we have a lot of uh, important habitat, but we have also a lot of habitat islands. And so the connection is super important. There's whole cities that have no wild areas, they have all urban, Santa Ana being one of those. And, I've been hearing, we're hearing more and more about how do we connect. There's obviously there's pros and cons. One, we want to bring nature back into those, but we also want to be careful about bringing nature because then we could be bringing harm to nature. If we're pulling wildlife into a very urban area, we might also be pulling them into an area where they might get hit by a car, or people might have issues with them going into their yards. So there's a lot of information behind that, but I think it's important. And I honestly wish we would have developed it better from the beginning. So we're kind of trying to correct things that are already done, and there's only little spaces, right? I think I read about a program this year, um, a greening program with schools trying to have, different schools have native vegetation. And I think that's the beginning because those sites actually could actually make a bigger impact because they have more space. There's not a lot of cars running around campus, obviously, because they're little kids. So I think that, that's where we're looking to is how do we start there and then maybe move into the neighborhoods. So I think that's great that you guys are considering that.
Project Grow collaborates with a lot of organizations, like with us, OC Habitats for One. Can you share a little bit more about how that's made an impact on your projects?
Yeah, I mean, Project Grow has only survived with the support of outside organizations. So from the beginning, we've received support in the form of office space, nursery space, and tools from the Department of Fish and Wildlife. So where we are, we've received permission to work around the Bay from CDFW, OC Parks, and the City of Newport Beach. We've received programmatic support from the Newport Bay Conservancy, who have welcomed our efforts at the Bay. And as they've grown their own volunteer restoration program, OC Habitats was instrumental in our effort to host volunteers several months after the pandemic has started. So as Stacy had mentioned, so I just want to reiterate that was a huge part because we as a program had to be shut down. And so OC Habitats was able to kind of help us pick up that I don't want to say slack, but just, we just couldn't do anything really. So that was
Our people
too.
were so thankful to actually get out, right? So
Yeah,
everybody, they were like, yes, we can go do something. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, David. Continue.
no, that's great. But I mean, that's it. We wouldn't be a program without obviously our participants, but also without our partners. So
And then like following on to like these collaborations, and all of like your guys' stories and work you've done, can you share a success story or an example of a project where you felt Project Grow had a significant positive impact?
I don't know if I can think of a specific example. I would just say overall, what we've been trying to achieve over the years, and the projects we're currently working on, they're all success stories for us. They're all
That's great.
examples of why our program works. I mean, and I can go a little more in depth. Again, I mentioned it before in terms of like how we've been able to address climate change and habitat loss is we know that the projects we're working in are promoting and supporting certain species that are known to be endangered or threatened. So that's obviously a way that we see our program as success. That's a success story, knowing that the work we're doing is actually working, but also our impact on our participants, especially those who want to continue in this line of work and make it a career. So we know that our past participants, interns, have been able to go on to make very successful careers for themselves. Some work at Michael Baker in higher positions, Xerces, other nonprofits and private sectors. So we know that, that our program has been able to at least help them along the way. Also, the fact that we've done such strong relationship with different institutions and groups that they've, have welcomed that have wanted to come back and work with us. I have a great example. So Valley High School has come out with us to work with us a few times. I know for sure last year they did when we were doing our last implementation of planting natives. And then they came out again with me this year, and I was able to bring them to that area where they worked, and they were able to see what that work looked like a year after. And I don't know if that's always an option for people, and
Yeah.
especially students, and the younger folks, to be able to see, hey, I planted over here, and now look how big these, mule fat are or whatever. And I even got to take a picture of them in front of the work that they did last year. And so that was really special for me to be able to see that. I know that that meant a lot to them as well. So that for us is success, and a success story for sure. So it always kind of wraps around back to our interns and our volunteers. It's just again, we're a community program, just like OC Habitats. We value the experiences and being able to continue those experiences for our participants. So yeah, I hope I answered that right.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. We love to
Yeah.
see it. I know you guys are doing work that's like, sometimes it could be small, like you can't notice it at first, especially for like interns or volunteers that help, like especially with planting things, kind of similar to your program called like roots. Like you guys are like literally planting roots. So that's really awesome. I know you mentioned earlier, like you guys, your milestones are seen through your numbers. So how do you measure the success and impact of your projects at Project Grow? Like how do you keep track of those kind of milestones, I guess, or stay organized?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have like a metrics through an Excel sheet that we've been recording data on from almost the very beginning, I think. So those numbers go back way back. So that's kind of how we've been doing it. And then anecdotally, so like for me at least, being there with my participants, my volunteers, my interns, I have one story specifically of like, so one intern through the CEB program, Center for Environmental Biology at UCI, they wanted to use me as a reference. So I said, of course, absolutely. And I actually got called for a potential internship for them. And so the person asked me a bunch of questions about this intern, and I was able to just share all the great things that they've been a part of, their leadership, the qualities, the specific projects they've helped with. And so being able to be that person, that kind of resource for that intern was just an amazing, and it felt really good for me personally, but obviously it's good for our program too to know that we're able to provide those kind of resources for our participants. So and then we're grant driven and mitigation. We have grant driven mitigation projects that we've fulfilled solely relying on volunteers and interns. So again, that's success. And then we talked about our impact on the environment. So all those things definitely are ways that we measure success and our impact.
Is there anything else you'd like to share? It could be anything either regarding yourself, your current projects, about Project Grow.
I would just encourage anyone who's interested, even remotely interested in getting involved with environmental work, to put themselves out there. It can be daunting or overwhelming because this is such a huge field. So there's so many different ways you can go with it. To just really start by picking one and just check it out. Like I've had an intern who has come out with me a few times, and they know that field work is not for them. And I'm super stoked that was an opportunity for us to be able to rule that out for them. That okay, this is not for you, but hopefully you can find something else in the field. And if there's something that we can do to help you along the way, we would be happy to. So yeah, just make yourself available and put yourself out there if you can. And it's been a very welcoming field and great experience for me. Again, I'm pretty new to the field too, so I've had wonderful opportunities be presented because I just put myself out there.
That's awesome. And then Stacy, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
I think just kind of in adding to what you said about putting yourself out there is, I think being in nature is, even if it's not your thing, it's still very therapeutic. And kind of touching the soil and just getting your hands dirty and your fingernails dirty and walking away, there is a satisfaction to that, even if you only do it one time or if you do it over and over again, that you are making a difference. And I'm so glad that that high school group was able to come back a year later, because like you said, oftentimes they don't get to come back and they don't get to see the results of their work. So I think that's really great. But I just think that every time we go out and we bring new people or new interns, almost everyone says, oh, that's my favorite, it's one of my favorite things I've done so far is being out there, and whether they're chatting it up with other volunteers or staff or interns, or just kind of listening to the wildlife around them. There's just, we're in such an urban setting all the time. We don't often get a chance to do that. So regardless of if you're pursuing it for career or just for personal reasons, I think it's important that we all do it just once in a while, even if not, if not all the time, at least once in a while. So, and giving that opportunity to people is great because they, a lot of the sites that we work in they're private, right? They're not open to the public. So, having, an opportunity to go into these places where they're not overrun with other people is kind of nice. So, yeah. So I thank you so much, David, for joining us. I'm going to let
Of
Sue
course.
wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you, David, for being here and giving us some of your time, sharing your story, sharing Project Grow's story. And then thank you, Stacy, as well, for providing more insight into all of these things.